We're just going to read it. How many parts do you think I can read it in? Don't believe everything you think. Chapter 1: The Journey to Discovering the Root Cause of Suffering. People have a hard time letting go of their suffering out of fear of the unknown. They prefer suffering that is familiar. Thich Nhat Hanh. There is an important distinction to make when speaking about suffering. When I mention suffering in this book, I'm referring to psychological and emotional suffering. There is a way in which, no matter what happens in your life, you do not have to suffer emotionally and psychologically. I am not saying what we go through is all in our heads or made up. Terrible and unfortunate events happen to people every single day. I'm saying that although we experience a lot of pain in our lives, suffering is optional. In other words, pain is avoidable, but how we react to the events and circumstances that happen in our lives is up to us, and that will dictate whether we suffer or not. Buddhists say that two arrows fly our way whenever we experience a negative event. Being physically struck by an arrow is painful. Being struck by a second emotional arrow is even more painful. Suffering. The Buddhists explained, in life we can't always control the first arrow. However, the second arrow is our reaction to the first. The second arrow is optional. When I first heard of this quote from Buddha a few years back, I was confounded because although I understood what he meant, I didn't know how I could apply this to my own life. If anyone were given the clear choice of suffering and not suffering, I don't think anyone in their right mind would choose to suffer. How can I choose not to suffer? If it were that easy, I don't think anyone would suffer anymore. It wasn't until years later that I came across a new understanding of where suffering comes from that I could stop it at its source. As I began my journey of self-improvement, I came across many different teachings, studies, and methods to help people overcome their problems. I read dozens, if not hundreds of books, studied psychology, went to therapists, listened to many different thought leaders, tried changing my habits, waking up at 4 a.m., changing my diet, becoming more structured and disciplined, shadow work, studying personality types, meditating daily, going on spiritual retreats, following spiritual masters, and researching different ancient religions. If you name it, I've probably tried it. I was desperate to find an answer because I wanted to know how to stop suffering in my own life and help others do the same. Although some of those things did help me improve incrementally, didn't stop my suffering. I still always felt highly anxious, fearful, unfulfilled, irritated, angry, and frustrated every day. Even after doing all that, I still didn't discover the answer. And if I'm being honest, I was even more lost than when I started on this quest. I felt purposeless, hopeless, and directionless. I didn't know what to do anymore, where to look, or who to talk to. It wasn't until I was in my darkest hour that a glimmer of hope began to lead me to the light. All of a sudden, years and years after searching, stumbling upon one of my first mentors who revealed the answer to how I could alleviate my suffering. The answer I discovered was an understanding how our minds work and how the human experience is created. Chapter 2: The Root Cause of Suffering. One who looks around him is intelligent. One who looks within him is wise. Machana Dilawayo. We live in a world of thought, not reality. Sydney Banks once said, "Thought is not reality, yet it is through thought that our realities are created." Each of us live through our own perceptions of the world, which are vastly different from the person right next to us. An example of this, you could be sitting in a coffee shop having a quarter-life existential crisis, completely stressed out of your mind about how you have no idea what you're doing with your life, when it seems like everyone else has theirs together, while the person next to you is happily enjoying their freshly brewed drink while peacefully people watching. You are both in the same coffee shop, smelling the same aroma, surrounded by the same strangers, but how the world looks to both of you couldn't be more different. Many of us go through the same events or are in the same exact location at the same time, yet are having completely different experiences of the world. Here's another example of how we live in a world of thought and not reality. If you walk up to 100 different people and ask each of them what money means to them, how many different answers do you think you'll get? Close to 100 different answers. Money is technically the same thing, but it means something different to each person. Money could mean time, freedom, opportunity, security, and peace of mind. Or it could mean evil, greed, and reason why people commit crimes. For now, I'm going to get into which one is right or wrong. Hint, there is no right or wrong answer, but that's for a different chapter. Another illustration of this concept is as follows. If you survey 100 different people and ask each of them what they think of our current president, how many different answers do you think you'll get? Even though it is the same person we're talking about, we will get 100 different answers because most people live in their own thoughts and perceptions of the world. The meaning or thinking we give an event determines how we ultimately feel about it. That meaning or thinking is the filter through which we see life from then on. Because of this, we live through a perception of reality, not in reality itself. Reality is the event happened with no meaning, thinking, or interpretation of it. Any meaning or thinking we give the event is on us. That is how our perception of reality is created. This is how our experience of life is created from the inside out. It's not about the events that happen in our lives, but our interpretation of them, which causes us to feel good or bad about something. This is how people in third world countries can be happier than people in first world countries, and how people in first world countries can be more miserable than people in third world countries. Our feelings do not come from external events, but from our own thinking about the events. Therefore, we can only ever feel what we are thinking. Let's hypothetically say that you really hate your job, and it comes from your enormous amount of stress, anxiety, and frustration. It pains you even to set foot in the building where you work, and just thinking about your job makes you furious. When you're thinking about your job, just sitting on the sofa with your family, watching a TV show together, but you are fuming at the thought of your job. Everyone else is having a good time except you. At this moment, everyone else in your family is having a different experience of life than you. Even though the same event is happening, just the thought of work created a whole different perception of reality, even though you're not physically at work. If it were true that external events could cause us to feel the way we feel inside, then you should be a happy camper in your living room, watching a funny TV show with your family every single time you do this activity, but that's not the case. Now, you may be saying that you're only feeling this way because an external event, your job, is causing you to feel stressed and anxious. To that, I'll ask the question. It is absolutely true that every single person feels the exact same way about the job they're working in. Two different people can be doing the same job but will have completely different experiences. It can be the most amazing experience and a dream job for one person, but be another person's worst nightmare and living hell. The only difference between one person and the other is how they think about their job, which determines how they ultimately feel about it. Let's return to our original scenario of hypothetically hating your job. Remember how much stress, anxiety, and frustration it causes you when you think about it? Let's do a quick thought experiment about that by answering the question below.